especially all the boys and the staff. I'd like to welcome our guests. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the Kolkata Literary Meet for honoring La Martiniere with this session. I understand that we're the only school who's hosting a session during this meet. And this is indeed a great privilege and a great joy for us. And I'm very happy to see so many boys and girls and teachers from visiting schools who are here to attend this session. I was reading about Saroo Brierley earlier, and I spoke to my boys about him this morning at assembly. And as I was saying to him, his life seems to be stranger than fiction. But what a wonderful life! What a wonderful story to listen to. And I hope that this session will be exciting and interesting for each one of you. I also read that Saroo actually belongs to Khandwa, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Does anybody know of another famous character who comes out of Khandwa? Well, I'm sure you've heard of a gentleman called Kishore Kumar. All right. So we have two very famous people coming out of Khandwa, and that's a strange coincidence. And after hearing about Saroo's life, I think he's as interesting, if not more interesting, than what Kishore Da was for all of us. Geniuses grow in small towns, it seems. Am I right? Saroo's nodding his head very sagely. All right. Well, once again, welcome all of you to this great session. I hope that this is going to be worth your while. And I hope that when you go back from here, you're more enriched and definitely excited about what IT can do for you in more interesting ways than we do in the computer lab. But to start with, first things first, on behalf of La Martiniere, I'd like to welcome our guests. And first of all, I'd like to welcome on stage and request our boys, if they're here, to please welcome them in the traditional La Martiniere fashion. First of all, may I call upon Mr. Parthajeet Sarma, who's going to be in conversation with Saroo. Mr. Sarma, if you'd please come up on stage. I would also like to welcome on stage Mr. Sarnath Banerjee. Sir. You will hear their introductions later from the organizers of the Kolkata Literary Meet. I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm sure they've got a more interesting way of introducing these fantastic gentlemen. We're very happy to have back in our midst, because he's a very familiar figure to members of our Readers Club here in school. He's been doing workshops for us. He's one of India's greatest graphic novelists and great mind, Samit Basu. Samit, thank you for coming back to La Martiniere. I say, what were you doing in Don Bosco when we could have really had you here? All right. He spends a lot of his time here now in La Martiniere. Thank you, Samit, for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, will you please put your hands together for the star of our show, the Google Boy Saroo Brierley. Saroo, I can see that you always make dramatic entrances. As your name is announced, everything falls apart. Come. And may I now request somebody from the Kolkata Literary Meet to do the necessary introductions. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and have a good time.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Google Brunch session organized by Kolkata Literary Meet in association with the Readers Club of La Martiniere. I think starting with Saroo. Saroo Brierley was born in Khandwa, as Sir just told you. In 1986, aged only 5, he lost all contact with his family when he was at a train station waiting for his brother, who never returned. Roaming the streets of Kolkata for 3 weeks by himself, Saroo was then placed in a local orphanage from where an Australian family adopted him. He grew up in Hobart, where he spent the next 25 years. After years of trying to track down his old town through the labyrinth of railway lines on Google Earth, he finally found Khandwa and traveled to India to try and find his family. In early 2012, after 25 years of separation, he reunited with his mother. Saroo's book, titled A Long Way Home, was released in June 2013 in Australia and went straight to the top of the non-fiction bestseller list. Coming to Sarnath Banerjee, he is a graphic novelist, artist, and filmmaker with a degree in biochemistry and a master's in image and communication from Goldsmiths College. He is the author of the graphic novels Corridor, The Barnes Owl's Wondrous Capers, and the Harappa Files. He has developed Enchanted Geography, a new comic strip for The Hindu, in which he has revived Brihu, a character that appeared in the Harappa Files. Banerjee has received several fellowships, such as the MacArthur, Indian Foundation for Arts, Charles Wallace Trust Award, and Egide Bursary in Paris. In 2012, he has commissioned for a public arts project during the London Olympics called the Gallery of Losers. Parthajeet Sharma is an award-winning innovator and successful entrepreneur, a fan of free markets and technology. He likes writing and talking about holistic approaches towards addressing base of the pyramid issues. Now settled in Mumbai, Sharma is born and spent his formative years in Guwahati. After a degree in architecture from Sir J.J. College of Architecture, Mumbai, and an MBA from Calcutta University, changed Sharma's perspective towards the building industry. Today, in addition to running successful businesses in the building industry, Sharma devotes ample time towards research and development in the industry. Such research, often done with international knowledge partners, yields award-winning products and services. Well-traveled, Sarma often pens down his thoughts, as writing brings clarity to most thoughts. He is the author of the book Smartphones, Dumb People, which has received very positive reviews. He is also the winner of the Economic Times Power of Ideas 2012 for the project Ideal Choice Homes. Lastly, to the boy who's from the school himself, Samit Basu is a writer of books, films, and comics. His first novel, The Simokan Prophecies, published in 2003 when Samit was 23, was the first book in the best-selling Game World trilogy and marked the beginning of Indian English fantasy writing. Basu's other novels include a YA novel, Terror on the Titanic, and a superhero novel, Turbulence. Turbulence was published in the UK in 2012 and in the US in 2013 to rave reviews. It won Wired's Golden Bot Award as one of the books of 2012 and was superheronovels.com's Book of the Year for 2013. All 5 of Basu's novels have been Indian bestsellers. Basu's work in comics ranges from historical romance to zombie comedy and includes diverse collaborators from X-Men Felix Castor writer Mike Carey to Terry Gilliam and Duran Duran. His latest graphic novel, Local Monsters, was published in 2013. He's currently working on a Bollywood adaptation of Turbulence. Resistance, the sequel, is out in the UK and US in July 2014. Basu was born in Kolkata, educated in Kolkata and London, and currently divides his time between Delhi, Mumbai, and the internet. He can be found on Twitter at @Samit Basu and at samitbasu.com. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful session.
Right, hi. Gentlemen, start your engines. It's a pleasure to be back here. The last time I was on this stage was during Karma Yatra 98, where the traditional Martiniere welcome was, at that point, because school rivalries were very fierce, to cut off the sound when we were performing and start it again, pretend it was a technical error. So I was a bit nervous when we heard about the traditional Martiniere welcome, but this is great. Now, it's wonderful to be here, and usually what happens is that when writers are in communion and the audience is adults, shall we say, or post-school people, you take full liberty to kind of talk about yourself, because, you know, if someone's there and they're getting bored, it's their problem, really. But since you guys are so smartly dressed and fresh-faced, and you look like you still have the remnants of hopes and dreams, we are in a position of slight fear and responsibility because we actually want to talk about things that you find interesting, right? So since this is also a Google session, I think it's a very good idea to make it as interactive as possible so that we know at any point what you want to talk about. Since the subject that we have on hand today is something that is an integral part of everyone's life, which is the internet, which is technology in general, which has been developing with leaps and bounds, and it's changed completely certainly from the world that we were in when we were your age. So you've had my very illustrious co-panelists introduced to you already. Now, Saroo and Parthajeet, I believe, are one book old. Right? Have you finished your second books already?
I haven't even started that yet,
Good.
but I will.
So, Sarnath and I are of course, old fellow villains and conspirators. We were published what was actually a decade ago now. So if you find us talking in a language that you don't understand, it's because we've been talking to each other for 10 years. Sometimes it's been nice, sometimes it's been arguments. So to start off, how many of you have smartphones in this hall right now? Come on. There are more of you. Put those hands. Your teachers aren't looking at you. Right. How many of those smartphones, teachers, please close your eyes. How many of those smartphones are actively on right now? How many of you are actively playing games as I'm saying these words? I'm assuming that everyone who laughed is actually doing this, but some brave soul is actually raised his hand back there, which is brilliant. So anyway, this is how important these little gadgets are to us now, in the sense that I'm sure not you, Saroo, because when I heard your life story, you've not had a second to be bored. But the two gentlemen over there, I'm sure in your youth at least, there have been boring times. These guys don't have that. They don't understand what the feeling is to be bored, to not have something to turn to not be essentially twitchy, hyperactive, and sociopathic. Congratulations. What I wanted to say, essentially, the point of all this was, at any point, normally what happens is you have a panel discussion and then you have questions coming. But let's change this. This is the age of the internet and this is a Google session. At any point, if there's a question that you want to ask, raise your hand and we'll figure out a way for you to ask it, right? So let's start off. Saroo, how many times have you now heard the story of your life narrated by other people?
Well, the story's just gone viral, well, globally. So a lot of I see it. I go on the internet and I see different articles, being sort of processed in different countries, and I'm like really amazed that how can this story have penetrated into a certain country like South Africa and countries that I'd never thought or dreamed of would ever sort of come about. So I hear the story from people that I went to university. They were from abroad when I was studying in Australia, and they're like, Saroo, you wouldn't believe what I just saw in the paper. You're in our paper in Switzerland or in Italy or Malaysia, and I'm like, how the heck did that happen? And it's always sort of astounds me. But I'm really fortunate and grateful that it's sort of getting around the world and into smaller areas as well. So it feels good.
See, because the amazing, obviously, the internet and Google itself has had so much of an impact on your life, and just, I think part of the appeal of the story, which I certainly, and all of you, since he's probably too shy and well brought up to say this, buy the book, read it, buy it especially. The thing is that, it's not only that technology has played such an important role in your story, but it's also been so crucial to the spreading of it and the reinterpretation of it. And, so it's let's say it's like an extraordinary story that in earlier ages someone would have heard from someone else and told maybe the 3 people they were close to, and the chances that it would spread across the world like this and would come back to you and you would go to so many places for it is really, I think, I mean, part of why your story is so appealing is that it really encapsulates what technology has done in this world. So, but we can actually move on from your backstory if that's what you'd like to do and talk about what role technology plays in your life otherwise.
Technology, right from the start, I sort of embraced from, from using the internet for all sorts of things, for, finding how to play the guitar or how to go windsurfing, because, I mean, back then, it was sort of, you required a lot of money to have tuitions. And so I thought, well, I've got technology here, I've got the internet, I've got people that are putting up on YouTube the fundamentals of whatever you want to really do, even though you have no idea, where to start. So just type in fundamentals of how to play guitar or whatever, and you start learning from there. So I thought I'd utilise it. And I was really inquisitive in all sorts of things, from sports to music, to finding out new technology that sort of has sort of developed, and it's amazing because I'm a very visual person and I like to see things in operation. So I sort of back then 2005, 2006. The internet was quite slow. The refresh rate on things were quite slow, and YouTube and things like that took a long time to download. But as time progressed, the internet got a lot faster. Hence, you could look up whatever you want and download things within seconds. It's always interesting, and at the end of the day, really, whatever you want to learn, it's at just at your fingertip. Really, you just got to type in onto the search what you want and press the button, and there it is. So, I mean... And
it sounds so remarkably simple, but right on Saroo's other side is another man who's called Saroo by several friends and relatives, who is sitting in this tragic hero pose right now, because this post-technology world is not a world he really wanted to live in. When I first met Sarnath, he was mostly in denial about the internet and used it mostly to find news of various grants that he was getting and ex-girlfriends who was trying to get in touch with him. But he's essentially a son of print. He roams around with, he understands paper, he understands wood, he understands inks and pens. And this whole soulless plastic world was not a world he ever wanted to live in, hence pose. But just the other day I saw you were, both posting and liking voluntarily on Facebook. So I want you to talk a little about how this transition came about and how you adjusted to it psychologically and physically. Oh, by the way, Parthajeet, also, everyone, I've been cast in the role of moderator, but can think of this as one of those irritating WhatsApp group messages where everyone can speak at any point of time, and don't wait for my questions. Yeah.
Quite right. I'm not, I think the word that is used is internet native, right? I'm a print native, means I did not know a world that can exist without print. The idea of printmaking, the idea of printed words, the idea of what you do can be circulated through paper. Before, people used to copy one book to several other books, and now they don't have to do that because it's printing technology. Internet, I was very slow to, it was actually a desperate push in that direction, because you have to wise up to the net, and you also realize that the world has become much more democratic. You can actually watch, you can listen to music that otherwise you have to wait for your cousin Tublu to bring from Ohio. You have to wait for 5 years before that song would actually perish from the memory of other people. I mean, you grow up in that world where there was a There was a world where everything, the party was elsewhere. So you sort of, you grow up in Calcutta and you with this legend of Mary Decker wearing a certain kind of shoes or someone else doing something else. And that world we could never really access. Now, thankfully with the internet, we can. So it's definitely democratized. I'm still a little uncomfortable with how to use Twitter. Facebook is all I have kind of managed somehow. It took me a while to... but as we enter the conversation, I will hopefully have more to say about... I'll pick up from what other people are sort of talking about and then hopefully have other things. I'm sure Parthajeet has interesting things to say as well about...
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, as the author of a book called Smartphones Dumb People, are you taking a stand? Or, what? Tell me where that came from. Like, I want to know that the spark that eventually led into the book. What was that moment, and how did that evolve into the book? Who caused it? Who was the dumb person with a smartphone who led to your book?
I'm actually here, sitting here to prove to my wife, I hope she gets a picture of this, that I'm not dumb. And that's why there's a big question at the end of the book, smartphones, dumb people. The answer is inside the book. But having said that, I actually came close to become unmarried in two instances in my life. First,